going on, all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? This is Vance bringing you another episode of Warframe God Builds, and today we're going to be reviewing Revenant. Revenant can be acquired from his quest, Mask of the Revenant, and the blueprint will drop from the quest, but you'll have to farm the pieces from the bounties, which can sometimes be a pain in the ass because, well, RNG always is a pain in the ass, but I digress. Taking a look at Revenant's abilities, you've got your first ability, which is Enthrall. It says here that it converts a target into a zealous thrall. Thralls turn allies and enthrall through damage. On death, they disintegrate into damaging pillars of energy. That thrall horde remains under a Revenant spell until this ability runs out. The only thing that's really super aggravating about this ability is that these targets that you take over, well, they can be killed off by your teammates. So while Ember's doing their thing, and Saren's doing their thing, and other Revenants are doing their thing, they can kill the targets that you've taken over, which essentially just wastes your energy. Now, I think that that's kind of an issue. I don't think that allies should be allowed to kill your enemies. I mean, Necros minions, and Naros minions, any other minion in the game can't be killed by other teammates. Therefore, you know, their minions are alive long enough to do something of relevance. It's just not the case here. If you move on to his second ability, Mesmer Skin, you become enveloped in sentient energy, redirecting damage and stunning all those who dare to attack you. Stunned enemies can be enthralled for no energy cost. Again, the problem goes back to the first ability. You do get a little bit of a break with enthralling enemies that are stunned, but the issue just goes back to those enthralled enemies getting killed and not being able to, you know, live out their usefulness. So, moving on to Reeve, which is essentially your Hydroid's Tidal Surge. This Tidal Surge clone, you'll dash through enemies as a wall of sentient energy, leeching shields and health from any encountered enhanced for thralls. So this is a really good tactic to use if you're kind of in trouble. Really, I don't think I'm going to be using Reeve at all. I think I'm just going to primarily rely on Mesmer Skin. It really doesn't make sense that Mesmer Skin is your second ability instead of your third, because you would figure that Reeve should cost less energy to do, and I'm just confused by DE's decision to place it where it is. Now, for his fourth and final, the ultimate, Danse Macabre. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know if they were like shooting for Spanish or what's going on here, but you erupt with a multitude of Eidolon energy beams and sweep a circle of death around Revenant. The beams will modify their damage type to target select defenses while incoming damage is redirected back to the same beams. Hold the fire to boost status effects. Aside from looking absolutely ridiculous like a fucking rave child on crack, it's actually a really awesome ability. It's probably the definitive ability of his entire kit. This is the one ability that you're going to take to the dance, just because it's the one button to win new mechanic of yesteryears brought to modern day. Danse Macabre will actually, like it says, it will actually modify its damage depending upon the enemy that it's faced with. So if it's Grineer, you're gonna primarily be doing corrosive. If it's something like Corpus, you may end up doing radiation. It just depends, but I mean, it's a great damage dealer. It's great for leveling up. Like if you build this thing for range and strength, you can take it into Hydron and essentially just stand there, keep filling yourself up with energy, knock off all your targets, and make sure that everything on the map is dead. I mean, if you got a co-op partner and you're like the co-op partner's rocking a Speed Nova and you brought a Revenant, you guys are just gonna fly through Hydron. Like 5 waves of Hydron, nothing. You got all your XP, you got all your weapons and your Warframes leveled up. No big deal. So that's his kit, and now I'm going to show you what to do with it. So as I mentioned before, if you're a Revenant player who's going to Hydron, you may want to build for strength and range, but since we're not going to Hydron and we're building for in-game potential, I'm going to rock with power strength of 238%, because like I said, that Danse Macabre shit is really useful. I've got corrosive projection here, power drift, umbral intensify, transient fortitude, fleeting expertise, augur secrets, augur message, vitality, prime continuity, and prime flow. We're gonna want the max energy possible, just because your ultimate really drains that shit quick. Prime continuity is it's really only important because of the pillars. I mean, aside from enemies that don't get tied in and drawn into the fight long enough, the pillars will do a decent amount of damage and hopefully enthrall other enemies as well. So if it really just depends on how well DE changes Revenant, if they change him at all. I know that when he was first initially released, he was buffed, so I don't think that it's enough. I mean, I think that his 4 is enough, but I don't think that his first is. So hopefully they will change that, and then prime continuity won't be such a necessity. So just build with that in mind. If you choose to use prime continuity, choose to be aware that it's subject to change. Fleeting expertise to help with the efficiency, because like I said, my god, the ultimate drains your energy so quick. Augur secrets obviously for the strength, umbral intensify for the same reason, transient fortitude for the same reason, power drift for the same reason. Augur message is again ability duration. So I mean, I'm mostly going for amount of time and strength, but if I were to change anything up at all, I would change out the mods that are for duration and go with maybe range. I've got Arcane Guardian and Arcane Grace. Both things revolve around getting damaged. If you get damaged with Guardian, you're going to get a certain percentage of armor. If you get damaged with Arcane Grace, then you're going to have a certain percentage of health return. So that's pretty much the build. If I have to say anything about it, I'd say it's a pretty standard setup. I mean, Revenant's powers speak for himself. If you use him properly, he's a very easy frame to use. I feel as though he's very beginner friendly. He's no Trinity, he's no Limbo. You don't need to understand any advanced dynamic mechanics. Like, everything is pretty standard here with this setup. So I'm going to move on with that being said. For primary weapons, I'm going to choose to rock with Amprex, because truth be told, I just couldn't find anything that synergized with his abilities that well. The only, like, when I start doing research for Warframes to see how weapons match up with their abilities, I tend to think about what mode would it be useful for. And while I was sitting in like excavation and survival and stuff like that, it just didn't seem too useful to me to have any type of specific weaponry, because his abilities pretty much do everything that you need done. So I figured, why not bring him into a Sanctuary Onslaught where you don't start out with a whole lot of energy and you just build it over time. So Amprex is really good for Sanctuary Onslaught. It will start killing and damaging enemies right away. As soon as you get out of the portal, you can start doing a tremendous amount of damage, do your Mesmer Skin, jump out, have your Xeneric Lens ready, go and start generating enough energy. That way you can do Danse Macabre for the rest of the wave until your next portal spawns, rinse and repeat. I mean, he's going to be really well paired with the Saren, because Saren will do damage over in time. She'll ensure that enemies will stay dead and that your efficiency can stay where it needs to be. And then you may want to have a Trinity, or I would say Haro, but Haro, he has to actually get kills in order to heal, and if you're a Revenant and there's a Saren present, then it's going to be really hard for Haro to get kills. So I can't actually recommend that you bring Haro along for the ride. Bring a Trinity. That way at least she can do EV, replenish you with energy, replenish the Saren, heal everybody in the party. It's always good to have a Trinity. I mean, I can't think of a situation where Trinity is not useful. So definitely, if you got a co-op partner ready, or a couple, bring a Saren, bring a Trinity. Revenant's going to be outstanding for Sanctuary Onslaught, and that's primarily the reason why I chose the primary that I did. You don't have to choose the primary, but if you want a good Amprex build, nevertheless, here it is: Serration, Split Chamber, Vigilant Armaments, Vigilant Fervor, Vital Sense, Hunter Munitions, Point Strike, and Infected Clip. You can't go wrong with this. Sometimes you'll see red crits. It's further enhanced by augments from Haro and other things such as Roar and Chroma's Vex Armoring. It's really good weapon. I recommend it for any frame that you play, but when it comes to synergy, I don't find a whole lot of weapons synergizing that well with Revenant, and that's kind of the same reason why I have an issue with the secondary weapon, is because nothing really suits him that great. I'm gonna go with Piranha Prime, mostly because I haven't featured a build for this yet. I'm now using it on my Mesa build, so if you're someone who likes Mesa, or if you follow my Mesa God build, then this is definitely something to consider. You've got your Barrel Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, Pathogen Rounds, Prime Pistol Gambit, Convulsion, Prime Quick Draw, Prime Target Cracker, and Hornet Strike. This weapon is really good, and after it gets like 3 kills in a row, it'll spawn like a little ethereal version of itself, and then it becomes dual wield. So it has a unique mechanic, but the unique mechanic does make a difference. After you get that second gun in your hands, the fire rate does increase and the damage is a little bit more potent. So maybe that could pair well with Revenant. It is based off of accuracy, and I would say that in higher levels, especially in Sanctuary Onslaught, you're not going to be able to kill enemies that quickly. So I would not rely on this for in-game purposes. Like if you go the long haul in a Sanctuary Onslaught, don't be taking it into like level 155 gameplay. Take it up to level 100 gameplay. Have fun with it while you can, but don't rely on it past that, because it's just not gonna behave the way that you need it to. Now for melees, that was my biggest problem, is I couldn't figure out. The Revenant is such a tough loadout to build around, because it's difficult to put weapons with this guy. I mean, he just, like I said before, he just does so much on his own. He's not really dependent upon his weapons. So I waited and I waited and I waited to see what type of melee weapons would come out, and rest assured we got one. And I'm not even complete with this build. Like the Paracesis, if you know anything about this, we got this from Bayless in the most recent quest they just released, and it is ridiculous. I've only put 4 Forma in this thing, and you notice my rank is 37. In order to get the max rank from it, and therefore the max mastery, which by the way will give you more than double the amount of mastery that standard weapons will, you have to put 5 Forma in this thing. With 5 Forma, you can hit level 40. I haven't even gotten that far yet, and I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like it's necessary. So for that reason specifically, I would say that go ahead and put the 5th Forma and make it a dash. Make it a dash for Gladiator Rush or Shocking Touch, because the chances of you getting a Riven for this are very slim to none, but in the event that you do, Rivens usually have a dash mark. They usually do. And if they don't, be like me and just only put 4 Forma in, because this is a relatively complete build. I don't need anything else. So it's just really amazing to me that I can even fit both sacrifice mods in, plus all the expensive mods that I've got going on here. I would say that you absolutely need a Blood Rush. It does make a difference. I don't know why. I've tested this and tested this and tested this, and I found that every time I exclude Blood Rush, I don't do nearly as much damage. So this is probably the most important mod out of this entire setup. Other good mods to have: Prime Fury. You're gonna want that swing speed. You're just going to want to. You're gonna need it. Prime Fever Strike. You can go with a standard Fever Strike and a Shocking Touch, but again, the Forma issue. You need 5 Forma to get the max mastery from this thing. It's crazy. Tempo Royale. Any stance mod will do. I just like this because it covers a 360 range of attack. Then you got your Gladiator Vice to also help with attack speed and the critical chance. Gladiator Rush, because the more of the set you have apart, you got the combo duration, which helps with Blood Rush, and then again the crit chance. Shocking Touch, again, we've already touched down on this with their corrosive combination in the Sacrificial Pressure, Sacrificial Steel. Normally a prime pressure point would be here, or something to that effect, but the sacrifice mods really do help. They benefit the mods within that setup. So that's where it's at. If you're gonna put the 5th Forma in, you can gamble and put the dash in to make sure that you get your max mastery, or you could just wait for that Riven. It's really up to you, but this is the build that I chose to rock with the Paracesis, and it is amazing when it comes to damage. Even if it doesn't do great initial damage, you can keep doing ground slams, especially with the one of the combos for this, which hits the ground. It'll knock enemies and keep them off of their feet practically indefinitely. So it's always good to use with a really strong Warframe such as Chroma, Revenant, Anaros, Nidus, anybody who can absorb a good amount of damage just long enough to close the distance and get your combos started. Because once your combos get going and you build up enough speed, you keep enemies off their feet, and it has ridiculous range. So absolutely worth using it, especially if you're going to go hunting slayers, because it says right here 47% damage to sentience. That's pretty darn impressive. You've got Revenant, who adjusts his damage based off of the enemy that he's fighting, plus you have a weapon that's primarily targeted towards sentience. So good luck having those motherfuckers evolve to your damage output, because they won't be able to. They'll get crushed under the wrath of Revenant, which is why he's a pretty incredible frame. And for all these upcoming quests that we're getting, especially the one that involves Lotus becoming a sentient, I have this hunch that we're going to be seeing a lot more sentience a lot more sooner. So this is definitely the loadout to consider if in the event that we do start seeing sentience a whole lot more often. In conclusion, I don't feel it's necessary to have a companion. You could really rock with anybody you got in your arsenal. If I was going to consider anything, I might bring Death Cube with his new mod Energy Generator, just because the more strength you get from energy, the better for Revenant. But at that point you would have to change up your build just a little bit to consider energy conversion. So like if you take a look back at the build, you might want to throw out Prime Continuity for like energy conversion. Now if you did choose to go that route, I would also include Arcane Energize in your setup, just because every energy orb that you get also grants energy to nearby allies. In conclusion, I would say that Revenant is such a well-rounded Warframe, you could practically throw him at any challenge in the game. Hell, I've even taken him to Eidolon hunting, and the best thing about him is the key feature that you can enthrall smaller little Eidolons. So, essentially making them not a worry when you're trying to capture that annoying Hydralist. I mean, the little Eidolons are half the reason why your lures go down to begin with. So having them out of the equation is a big help. Revenant, however, I noticed is still affected by radiation procs, so if you are going to take him to Eidolon hunt, I would bring Alonka, and I would also bring the Arcane Enhancement, Arcane Nullifier, just so that you can be rid of the radiation procs. And when it comes to Arcane Nullifier, you really need to have 2 of them maxed out so that you're pretty much guaranteed to just not be affected by that little EMP shockwave thing that the Eidolon does every time its limb is broken. At that point, I would also change your focus lens to Uneru. Go with the Uneru Wisps. Spawn your Wisp, that way you can do the maximum amount of damage with your Operator, and go from there. So I hope that this has helped you build your Revenants and make a decision on what you want to bring to the table. Oh, and one last thing. I can't promote my stuff enough, so I need you to help me out here. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, and also consider taking a look at my Warframe trailers, my Warframe speed paints, because every time I do one of those, it requires a lot more effort and ambition than these videos ever do. And that's honestly where my heart is. So kudos to you for staying tuned for the rest of the video. And until next time, this has been Vance, signing out. Peace.